Have you ever felt completely surrounded by people, but still completely alone? It's one of the strangest, most painful experiences we can have. Being physically present with people we love, family and friends, but feeling like we're not there, like we're on an island. Like there's a wall that you can't break through. It's not just veterans who feel this way, it can happen to anyone who's experienced a major life change or loss, retirement, new chapter in life, even a hard season of transition, maybe from high school to college. Suddenly, the things that used to define you, they don't fit anymore. But there's good news. There's a way to break through this wall. And it starts with this approach that we've built here at Rewire around connection with people and the skill set to deepen connection as truly fundamental to the way that we live. For many, it leads to purpose, joy, and a new way of showing up in life. Today, I want to share Brian's story. Brian's an Army veteran who feels lost after coming home. His journey from isolation to connection offers powerful lessons for anyone seeking to find meaning after life's hardest transitions. If you're new here and you don't know me, I'm Dr. Andrew Smith. I'm a veteran, I'm a therapist, I'm a Tillman Scholar, I'm the founder and creator of Rewire Wellness. Over the years, I've worked with tons of people, especially veterans, who find themselves stuck in patterns of disconnection and isolation. I don't know a single veteran in my community of veterans or that I've ever met with that says, I want to feel alienated and disconnected. They don't want to feel these ways. We don't want to feel these ways, to feel distant from the people that we love, not sure how to bridge that gap. And that's what I've been studying for more than a decade. If that sounds familiar, this video can offer a roadmap back to connection and meaning. If you're ready to take next steps today, link in the description of rewirewellness.co. There's a plan builder, relationship health guide that can get you started right away. We've got an AI therapist that we're really excited, trained really specifically on this model that I've published called Rewire. So today, here's what I'm going to cover. I guess you could call this a roadmap for today. Number one, Brian's story and the hidden battle that he faces after returning home from service. Number two, why social connection, not just therapy, is crucial for healing. Number three, the steps Brian took to rebuild meaning in his relationships. Number four, how you can apply these same steps to reconnect with purpose and joy. Let's get started. So, part one, Brian's story, this hidden battle. When Brian steps off the plane, I want to paint this picture. He's greeted by patriotic cheers of neighbors, the warm embrace of his wife, the excited squeals of his kids. On the outside, it's a movie. It's a picture-perfect homecoming. And for a moment, that feels great, but on the inside, Brian feels uneasy. When he comes to see me, he describes it like this. I feel like I'm on an island. I'm surrounded by people who love me. There's this wall I can't break through. No one really understands what it's like to be me. Brian's story, it's not unique. Over half of all veterans report experiences of loneliness and isolation far higher than the general population. And lots of other types of people that I've worked with that Rewire can also help exist. First responders, nurses, physicians, high stress occupations. The hardest part is Brian, he doesn't want to be withdrawn and distant. He loves his family and friends. He doesn't know how to connect anymore. The skills that kept him alive in combat, like vigilance, emotional suppression, cynicism, they don't translate well into building relationships at home. So let's move to part two, why connection is crucial for healing. Research, it consistently shows that social support is one of the strongest predictors of mental health recovery. If Brian wants a full recovery, his social network isn't an afterthought, it's central. This is especially critical for veterans where low social support significantly increases the risks for PTSD, depression, even suicide. Here's the problem though, our mental health system, because it's a hospital system, it misses this. Veterans seeking help for relationship issues, about 96% of veterans come for mental health care because something's going on in their relationships. It's their primary reason for coming for help. Something like rebuilding a struggling marriage, pretty common, or reconnecting with children who you've lost a year or more of time with. Instead of being funneled into treatments to help directly target that, they're funneled into disease focused treatments like PTSD care. And while trauma therapy is important, and we've got some really great PTSD treatments, it overlooks the bidirectional relationship between social support and healing. Without addressing social support, isolation, social connection skills, this sense of alienation and isolation, recovery can remain for many incomplete. I want to riff a little bit further on that and say that there's a really multi-dimensional evidence base for how social support is really important. Relationship health is really important for even how veterans respond in mental health treatments like PTSD treatments. When support is high, a veteran's ability to get better benefits from going through PTSD therapy, for example, increases. And when support is low, their ability to benefit from those treatments suffers. There's lots of types of evidence that on that theme that I think are really important and we've ignored because we're so rooted in a disease focused approach, because that's what's measurable and that's what we can reimburse for based on insurance and billing payment systems. So let's move to part 3. How did Brian transform and rebuild meaning and connection? When Brian came to me, he'd already gone through some traditional PTSD therapy. It helped a lot. It helped him manage his symptoms, but it didn't teach him how to thrive after combat. It was focused on reducing something bad instead of increasing something good. We shifted the focus from symptom management to rebuilding his identity, purpose, and relationships. Think about it like this. Sometimes we need symptom-focused treatment, veterans in particular, to reduce the size of that PTSD signal that is really disrupting relationships. But then for the rest of the journey of a life, it has to be about connection and meaning and purpose through relationships. So we shifted Brian's focus to those things. Here's how we did it. We started with number 1, Brian, what matters most to you? What are your values, not your symptoms? What kind of husband do you want to be? What kind of father do you want to be? Friend, leader. Brian, he identified 4 key aspects of who he was striving to be, or at least he once strove to be. He identifies love, loyalty, service, and growth. And focusing on his symptoms isn't really helping him move towards love, loyalty, service, and growth. So these things now become his compass rather than reduction of suffering. The focus is on how to live up to these values of love, loyalty, service, and growth. Even on his hardest day, they guide his actions. Step 2, taking small values-based actions. To bridge the gap between who Brian was currently acting as and who he was aspiring to be, who he wanted to be, we focused on small intentional actions that could build inertia. And they were grounded and rooted in those 4 values that I mentioned earlier. So scheduling one-on-one time with his wife, showing up at his kids' school events, not as grand gestures, but as simple acts of presence, which required Brian to push through his emotional arousal that came from being in crowds, because something bigger was guiding him, which was to show up as a dad. Not an easy thing to do. Number 3, volunteering with Team Rubicon, a veteran-led disaster response organization. This gives him a new mission beyond combat. It allows him a touch point with veterans that are also trying to live out their values through service. Then number 4, re-engaging with his faith, not as a way to fix himself, but to build community and trust again, to build a relationship with a higher power, that relationship that had been damaged through some of the nasty things that he experienced during his deployments. And step 3 in Brian's process, we reframed his recovery. Recovery for Brian's not just about eliminating or reducing symptoms, it's about living fully. So his anger still flares up sometimes. We've worked on how to take responsibility for that in a different way in his relationships when it damages and affects those. There are nights that he still struggles with sleep and he has less than optimal energy the next day. But these PTSD symptoms, they no longer define him. His metric for how he's doing in a day is no longer solely rooted in whether or not these things flare up. It's just one part of his story. What defines him now? Showing up, leading, finding purpose and connection and service. So, in closing, Brian's story, it's not just about healing, it's about reclaiming a mission rooted in connection and leadership and service. So, part four today, if you're a veteran or anyone who feels stuck in patterns of disconnection, I want you to let Brian's journey remind you that it's possible to rebuild. It's possible to refocus what it looks like to live a full life after combat. It's possible to refocus on what it looks like to live a full life in the context of being a first responder, a nurse, a physician, um, somebody who is just trying to live a life full of values and connection. I want to encourage you to download our free connection guide and to start a free plan builder to start this process that played out in Brian's life at rewirewellness.co. Thanks for watching. If this video resonated with you, please like it, comment, subscribe. That really helps us out as we're building this community. And here's to lives full of meaning and purpose.